All right, so it's going to be a review of Venom: The Last Dance, the third Venom movie, directed by Kelly Marcel. I have not liked any of the Venom movies. I remember being in the theater watching the first one and going, "What the hell is this? Why even throw this out there?" Right? Bad dialogue and largely pretty lame story and villain and things like that. But Venom and Eddie, I was like, okay, they have a decent dynamic. It's like, all right, that's easily the best part of this. And they knew that. That's why they leaned into it for the second movie. The second movie, I hated. I had a rant on that movie. It's very obvious that, well, we just came up with whatever story, whatever. We already set up Carnage, so he's the villain. But he's mainly just doing things with, Scream or whatever. We're not really doing much actual development of that villain to actually have it be impactful. It's mainly just about Venom and Eddie throwing things around the apartment and getting upset with each other, breaking up and coming back together. Oh, I hated that movie. I really did. It's like, oh my God, we have so little going on in this movie. It's already pretty short from what I remember. But we're gonna have Venom go to like a rave or something and talk about how he's out of Eddie's closet. Like, all right, bro. So, yeah, I really didn't like those other two, especially the second one. But who knows? Maybe this one won me over. So the last time we saw Eddie and Venom, Eddie once again played by Tom Hardy, he had got sent to the MCU for no real reason, and then he got sent back. So this is after he gets sent back, and him and Venom are in a bar, and Eddie's drunk, and some hijinks like normal. But then they see on the news that they're wanted in connection with the death of that character. I think it was a cop in the second movie, largely pretty forgettable. But they're wanted in connection with his murder or his death. So they decide that they're going to go to New York and potentially see the Statue of Liberty. I guess it's really just something that they need something to be doing. I guess before the creatures attack them, the plot really starts going. So we have Null in this. We get an exposition dump about him. So Null, he's from the comics, he created the symbiotes. The symbiotes and the symbiotes they had turned on him and imprisoned him in this other area. So he's stuck there, but he can still somehow create these creatures, and he can teleport them to places, and he ends up teleporting them to Earth, so that he can find Eddie and Venom, because Eddie died at the end of the first movie, and then Venom brought him back. I'm pretty sure that was the first movie. Venom brought him back to life. And so because of that, they have the codex inside them, which is the code to him being able to get out of that area that he's in. It's largely pretty lame. Lame and weak of a story. So I didn't like this movie, just like I didn't like those other two. But I'm not as mad, or really mad at all, like I was with that second one. This is not a rant. But this is a bad movie. I didn't like this movie pretty much at all. It's so obvious they're just kind of throwing these out there. I keep saying that, but they are obviously throwing these out there because they can't make a live action Spider-Man movie. Positives: Eddie and Venom, even though their shtick is it's gotten old. It's been old for me ever since the second movie. Uh, their dynamic is still the best part of this movie, and there are some moments with them that I actually liked, and I got a little bit of a chuckle out of. So there's this other family. They spend up all their savings so they can go on a road trip to go to Area 51 because it's being shut down. So they're like, oh, maybe we can see some aliens, when they're shutting it down or whatever. So they come across Eddie and Venom, and there's kind of a touching moment between Eddie and the kid. But specifically, there was a scene I think that is the best scene in the movie, where they're all singing along, or they're singing a song, and Eddie's like, no, he wants no part of it. But Venom's singing along with the song, and he's like annoyed by both of them and things like that. It's like, I thought that was a good scene. I thought that was funny. Uh, so there's moments here and there with those two, and then also I think the action is pretty good. Like, I was entertained by it. There's a lot of like symbiote stuff going on at the end, with creatures and things like that, and it was cool. I wish it would have been a little bit more for like this, for the third act, big climactic fight in a trilogy, like the end of a trilogy. But whatever. I wish it would have been more, but I thought it was cool. Even though I still don't like the effects when it comes to the symbiote, especially whenever the symbiote is like, the person is transforming into their symbiote version. That still looks pretty bad to me. It just kind of feels like it kind of looks unfinished, and like it just needed more time or something. The story is just it's just weak. It's just because they know it doesn't matter with all three of these movies, but especially with the last two, because they realized just how much people liked the dynamic between Eddie and Venom. Even people who don't like these movies at least recognize like, hey, that is the part of this that like, that is the best part of it. They know that they can just kind of make up whatever story they want, just like throw whatever at the wall to see what sticks. And as long as they have Venom and Eddie bickering and arguing and throwing things around and Eddie talking to Venom in public and people being like, "Whoa, who's that guy talking to?" Which definitely hasn't gotten old, right? By the third movie, right? Um, as long as they have that, they know that like there are people that will be like, you know what, the rest of the movie doesn't really matter as long as I get to see these two interact with each other. So that's why the story around it is weak, because they know it doesn't have to be all that much of anything. The family, I didn't really care for them other than those moments I spoke about earlier. They feel like they're largely just kind of forced in here. The whole thing with this other doctor, Dr. Payne, played by Juno Temple, she has this whole thing with a backstory. This badly done backstory. It looks bad cinematography wise, but she's on a beach or something with her brother. Her brother wants to be, I guess, the scientist or whatever that she becomes, right? But he dies when they get struck by lightning. And even though they both got struck by lightning, she got a scar and he actually died. So she, I guess, feels guilty. She feels like she's living the life that he should have lived. Um, this is a new character. This character wasn't in the other two movies. It's like, why are you introducing these new characters with backstories for no reason? And they even have this thing towards the end where it's like they keep it kind of open to do more stuff with this character. And I'm like, Sony, nobody gives a shit. It's like, don't do it. Like, nobody cares. Uh, so there's Chiwetel Ejiofor plays this other character that's largely pretty forgettable. It's like we all know this is all about Venom and Eddie, and this is the last movie of a trilogy. Just like focus on them. They end up in Vegas, and there's some kind of hijinks going on there. Venom's forcing him to play slot machines and stuff like that. Uh, they meet Mrs. Chen there. She just happens to be there, and she won a lot of money, things like that. And she just out of nowhere is like, "Dance with me." And I'm like, what's going on? Why are they dancing? There's no real reason for it. They're supposed to be hiding because the whole thing around the thing with Null is that Venom can't take complete control over Eddie because if he does, that's how the creatures can actually see them. They can see the codex inside them whenever that happens. So even though there's been times where Venom, other than when Venom actually has to save Eddie's life, he's like, I can't come out, right? That's why he controls a horse and things like that, so that the creature won't see them. He decides to still dance with Mrs. Chen, like a full-on dance sequence where it's like they planned it beforehand. They're like in sync with their moves. And even there's a joke about that. Eddie's like, did you guys plan this? What's going on? It's like, how is this like choreographed? I guess that's kind of amusing, but what's the point of it being there? None. There's no point to it at all. Other than for it to be like a fun thing to put in the trailer, and I guess it leads to them some things happening right after it. But it's like, why? There's no real reason for it though. It's one of those things where the minute you start thinking about this movie at all, it's just like, you guys didn't really think this through, huh? This definitely needed some more drafts, probably, right? Null, who has not been mentioned in any of these movies up to this point, the creator of the symbiotes, which what you think he would have been mentioned by like the first movie. Uh, he's the ultimate big bad that we're not going to do anything with, right? He's stuck in this other area. He created the symbiotes, which they don't really, even though it's an exposition dump, they don't really go into how, but the symbiotes send imprison Null in this other area. How they don't really go into that, from what I remember. And then he's able to create these other creatures in that other area. Even though he's in prison, he's able to create these other creatures that are superior to the symbiotes, like far superior. By the time we get to things that happen later on in the movie at the end, uh, far superior. And he's also able to somehow teleport them. They can't just teleport themselves because they only teleport away from him to go after Eddie and Venom. So you mean to tell me he can create them and use some kind of teleportation powers to send them away and do all kinds of other stuff, but he can't find some way to escape that place himself? It's just like it really is just whatever the fuck you guys wanted to come up with. We have a third movie. We can make this a trilogy and end it with it. Null created the symbiote, so why not have him involved? Even though we're not really gonna do much with him. It's just like Sony is just so fucking lazy. And then with how these movies have been, where they feel lazy, they feel forced, made out of obligation, and we can justify it because of the name recognition of the character from the comics, and his, obviously his link with Spider-Man, him being a Spider-Man villain. Uh, so we're just gonna make these, and then at the end of this movie, they have the nerve to have like this emotional, ending with Venom and Eddie. I won't spoil it because I just don't feel like it, but they have this very emotional ending, heartfelt, and I'm thinking to myself, I feel it a little bit, just a little bit, because I do think their dynamic is easily the best parts of these movies that does, and it's one of the only things that actually entertains me whenever I've watched any of these three movies. It feels so unearned based on how lazy and bad these movies have been. So, anyway, it's just, I don't know. It just, all right, that's it. That's Venom 3. It's bad, just like I expected it to be. At least I wasn't mad, though, like I was with the second one. So there's that. But, I gave Madam Web my lowest rating earlier this year. At least it's not that. So whatever. I'm giving it trash. And that's it. That's Venom. What is it called? The Last Dance? Yeah, The Last Dance. That's Venom 3. Venom The Last Dance. Trash. Subscribe, and we're done.